Good afternoon. I thought I would start the meeting a little bit early and just make sure that I am all set up and ready to go. We have a busy session today. Okay, well, whilst we wait, be really interested to know where in the world you're joining me from. So if you just want to pop in the chat, it doesn't have to be a specific place. It can just be a general. I'm from Wales. Or if you want to be more specific, you can. I'm just a bit nosy, and it helps me to check if the chat's open and working. Dungannon, hello, welcome. And Derry, you were there in the summer. Beautiful part of the world. Oh, quite a few from Derry. Ballyronan. I feel like we... Oh my goodness, let me just close that down. It will stop ringing in a second if you can hear that. A very snowy Pomeroy. Yes, I live between Birmingham and the Welsh borders, and it is very snowy. So snowy that nursery decided to message me this morning at 8 AM saying they're not opening till 10, which was great fun. As I had a 10 AM training that I had to suddenly... Anyway, it was a morning. So I'm hoping I'm going to be a bit calmer this afternoon. But yes, the overwhelming feel is that you're all from Northern Ireland. Beautiful part of the world. We love going every summer. Right. I guess I'll make a start. Just give it another 30 seconds. Just make sure people can hop on. Okay. 19 people. That's pretty good. 19 viewers. Okay. Right. Good afternoon, everybody, and Happy New Year, should I say. Welcome to our Getting Started with the Just2easy Tool Suite for Key Stage 2 session this afternoon. So my name is Nikki Kimball. I am one of the educational consultants and the one that's responsible for the vast majority of the online learning. So you'll probably recognise or become familiar with my face before too long. So let's have a little think about today's session. This is a 2-hour training session. So we will be done by 1 PM. This is intended to be a hands-on session, so please make sure that you are logged in and ready to try things out. If you have the ability to, the best way to do it is to watch on one device and practice on another. So if you are watching, if you've only got the one device in front of you, if you do have the ability to go and grab a student device or anything, an iPad, Chromebook, another laptop, go ahead and grab it. It will just make it a little bit easier than having to listen to me and try and practice it at the same time. Questions are welcome and encouraged. So please use the chat function at any time. That's we've been chatting in the chat function, so I know it's working. If at any point you want to know any questions, just pop them in the chat function, and I will intermittently give you some time to ask questions should you need to. The session is being recorded and will be made available afterwards on our YouTube channel for you to revisit. And I'm just going to double check that it is recording. Yes, it is. Out of interest, I would really like to know if any of you are brand new to Just2easy. So if you could give me a reaction, so you've got the react button on your page, any reaction if you are brand new, never used it before. Any reaction to do, thumbs up, heart, clap. Okay, 1 thumbs up, 2, brilliant, 3, okay, that is good to know. 4, 5, fab. That is very helpful. Okay. Okay, that helps. Thank you very much. So let's have a little think about what we're going to be doing today. Another little thing that I've added in. Before we begin, think about something you'd like to explore or understand better about Just2easy by the end of this session. So this could be a specific tool, a classroom idea. It could be a curriculum focus. Maybe you're looking at digital publishing this term or programming. It could be something you've always been curious about but never had time to try. It could be a tool that you've seen and you'd like to know a little bit more about. So share your thoughts in the chat. Anything goes, big or small. It could be a few newbies out there that you just want to know how the tool works. Coding ideas. I've got you back for that. That is in the plan. Brilliant. Anything else people would like to know? Database ideas. That is on the list. Digital storytelling for year 5. Okay, I've got something that we could use for that a bit later. Brilliant. Okay, some good ideas. If there's anything that you think of as the session goes along, then please just give me a shout. Okay, right. So this is exactly what we are going to cover today. So I'm going to give you an introduction to the Just2easy Tool Suite and how it supports the digital curriculum. I didn't move that back, so let me just move this up. There we go. We're going to explore the Launchpad, personalising and managing classroom access to tools and resources. We're going to look at navigating the My Files area, so creating, saving, organising and sharing content. Titanic, I will include that. I've just seen that come in. Accessing the pupil files, so viewing, assessing and providing feedback on pupil work. So if there are any of you that are here from this morning, we are going to cover quite a bit that we did this morning in the first bit of the session. It is going to be a quicker bit of the session, but we are going to go into more depth. So don't worry if you've done both sessions on the bounce. We're going to embellish it somewhat. So we'll particularly focus on providing feedback on pupil work. Then we're going to have an overview of the JIT tools for Key Stage 2 application. I have added JIT Paint here, but I think I might skip over that. We'll see how we get on with timing. Because I do like that in terms of digital creativity and illustration. In fact, I'll show you JIT Paint, but I'll just show you some examples of how it could be used for Key Stage 2. JIT Branch, so that is branching databases. So that's going to fit nicely with your database requests. So we'll start with JIT Branch, how we can sort and classify data. We'll have a look at JIT Mix for storytelling and presentation. So storytelling for year 5, that would fit in nicely with that one. And also an introduction to J2 Create. So J2 Create is going to be a great one for digital storytelling. Introduction to database, so the database tool. So we'll look at collecting, organising, interpreting data through digital means. So we'll look at creating our own database, but also manipulating existing databases, such as the Titanic database. We'll have a quick look at J2 Code, introducing coding progression for visual and text modes, so your block-based coding. And also we'll look at Logo for your text-based coding. I'm going to give you practical demonstrations of how to integrate the tools across subjects. So we'll do a broad range of literacy, numeracy, science. We'll do all sorts of activities today. Accessing, saving and sharing evidence of learning across the suite using J2 Journal. So I'm going to show you that as a tool. And also the library. I haven't included the library in that list. We're going to look at sharing resources from the library, and then I'm going to signpost you to further CPD support resources and classroom ready templates. Very busy session. So let's start at the beginning for those of you that are completely brand new, and for those of you that maybe aren't aware of sort of the breadth of our tools. So we are quite a unique tool, and punching above our weight against our competitors. So the reason I say that is because, unlike our competitors that are very regularly used in schools, we are designed for teaching and learning. So we are designed for students to use. Okay, specifically primary students. And you'll notice that it's very colourful. It's very icon based. There's not really a lot of writing, or if there is writing, there's generally an icon to support the writing. Which makes it very easy for our youngest learners to use, but also learners that maybe struggle with reading and writing, that maybe are a bit older. So it's designed specifically for teaching and learning, not like our competitors who are designed for business and then shoehorned into education. So we are slightly different. We want our users to be able to create, share and learn, and to do that as easily as possible. We are a cross-curricular tool. And by the looks of things, the vast majority of you are from Northern Ireland, so you are already used to using and implementing ICT cross-curricularly. Anyway, you're very different from over here in England, where our computing curriculum is dry as dust for anyone that's had to teach it. You use it in a very real-world life experience manner, in that you implement it where it's needed. So the tools do lend themselves really well to that. It's suitable for foundation stage all the way up to post-primary or Key Stage 3. There's tailored support for a range of diverse needs, and the tool suite has a range of accessibility features built in for those that need it. So things like text-to-speech, speech-to-text, word lists, so all of these are helpful for those children that maybe need a little bit of extra scaffolding. There's multilingual support, so it can be used in both English and a multitude of different languages, including Welsh and Irish. The tool suite promotes creativity and digital literacy, which we'll sort of touch on a bit later. And it's integrated into many platforms, including C2K, Hub, LGFL, providing a secure, familiar environment for students at no extra cost, which generally is music to many schools' ears. So it's already freely available. It supports and promotes strong homeschool links with an inbuilt parent portal that centres around J2 Journal. So we're going to have a very quick look at J2 Journal later. We're not going to get into the ins and outs of sort of how you set it up, but I will show you where you can access support to get that done. But the parent portal is an optional thing that you can opt into. It is completely free. It's all part of the journal. So if you are using other tools that you're paying for parental communication, this might be something that you want to consider. Okay, and it gives parents access to be able to view work that's being created in Just2easy at home. Okay. Right, so we're going to start with the Launchpad. I'm going to point out some obvious bits and maybe some things that might not be so obvious that you might have skipped over and missed. So when you log in, you'll land on the Launchpad or J2 Launch. Okay, and it looks like this. So let's have a look at mine. Here we go. So this is my Launchpad. You've got all your tiles. The first tile that you'll see here is your My File. So that is where any of your content is stored. That's your save file. Much like your Google Drive or your OneDrive, our version is called My Files. Now, your My Files and your students' My Files is in exactly the same place. So when you are showcasing on the board, you can show them it's going to be in the same place. So I think that's really helpful. Most recently, we've moved this library tile. It used to be up here, but it was getting missed by a lot of teachers. I think everyone thought the tools were sort of down here. So we've moved the library down here. Now there's about 4,000 ready-made resources in there. We are going to have a look at the end of the session. So I'll show you how to search and share resources from there, but just be aware that that is brand new and that is there. Now, the only major difference between this Launchpad and a student Launchpad is this teachers area. Okay, so the teachers area does exactly what it says on the tin. It's only for teachers. We'll have a little look at it in a second, but that is the only major difference from your Launchpad and the student's Launchpad. So that's really helpful for showcasing work. I've done it before with tools that have had a teacher's site that looks quite different to a pupil site, and it makes it just really tricky to teach them how to do something when you're, showing it on the board and theirs looks even slightly differently, can be a little bit confusing. Okay, so that is the only major difference. Other things, we can move these tiles around, so you can reorder them if you wish. Now to do that, we have to unlock. So this is the lock button here. I'm going to zoom in there and zoom out. If I click that, I can now reorder my tiles. So that can make it a little bit useful. Maybe if you've got, a tool that you use very commonly, you could have that at the top. So I quite like to use JIT and J2 Create and the microphone. So I could reorder them if it just makes it a little bit easier for you. Okay. And then we lock it. So that will lock that in place. Other things, there is an upload button, so you can use that to upload content into your My Files. There is another way as well, but just be aware that if we click on that tile, we can then drag and drop or choose files to add into our My Files. So we can add that in there if we need to. So that is the upload button just there. Okay, as I said, there is another way. I'm going to show you in My Files shortly. Now your settings are up here. So can you see we've got our username, top right? So if I click on that, I've got my settings here. So this is my little avatar, which we'll talk about in a second. But if I click on my settings, this is where I can change things like my first name, last name, and display name. Now, because most of you are joining us from what we call a managed service, and what I mean by managed service is C2K, Hub, LGFL, all of these are managed services for certain areas. So the platform itself will manage all the data. So C2K, for example, will manage all the data. We pull that data from C2K. So it may be that some of this data is uneditable. So it might be grayed out. So mine is slightly different. I think you should be able to change your display name, I think. But that's something that is useful. It's also a good teaching opportunity for online learning in terms of, teaching things like display names, what we should use as a display name, that kind of thing. Then you've got your language. So this is where you can change your site to a different language. So we've got things like Welsh. We've got Irish a bit further up. Where is my Irish? There it is. So if I click and then click save, that is going to turn that into Irish. So you have that option. It will change almost everything, including things like word list, text to speech, and speech to text. So that is an option, should you need it. Phew, I thought it wasn't going to change back then. Then lastly, we've got our little avatar here. Now you can change this in J2 Stars as well, but I like this as a teaching opportunity. And in fact, I've asked the developers to have a little save to My Files button, because I think this for a Key Stage 2 class would be fantastic. To be able to create your own avatar. So you can change all of this, change hats, you can change the eyes and the mouths and the colour. Okay, you can also randomize it. Oh. Okay, to create your own avatar. So what I would like, and I've requested this so I can do a live lesson on it, is to have a save to My Files button, so they can save this image. I mean, you can save this image, I think, because you could snip it. Let's see if we can. Oh, it's not giving me the option to save that image. So save as My Files, and then to use that in J2 Create to then create like an e-safety poster, or to use this avatar as like a storytelling kind of character. That's my plan. So I've asked the development team, so watch this space. But yes, I think this would be a really good tool for online learning, sort of talking about avatars and why would you use an avatar, how to conceal our personal information, that kind of thing. Okay. Also good for social, emotional, mental health as well, because you can showcase emotions and feelings and that kind of thing. Okay. So I'm going to leave that. So that is my avatar, and that is in the same space for your pupils as well. Back to my Launchpad. So that's my settings. Then we've also got our notification center here. So this little bell, you will have a notification center. Your pupils will also have a notification center. So that helps you to stay up to date about what's going on in your messaging, J2 Stars, J2 Homework, My Files, and J2 Journal. Okay, so you can see here I've got a new class entry published in my class in J2 Journal. I've got someone's completed a homework. As I scroll through, I've got my progression has been exported. I've got a new message from a pupil. So it just helps me to keep up to date. And I can mark all those as read. So whenever that comes up, that will sort of let me know. I think that is everything on the Launchpad. You can also add your own tiles by clicking the plus button, and you can also delete any of these tiles. Now that will just delete it off your own Launchpad. It won't delete it off your pupils. Okay, please feel free to ask any questions as we go along. I think I have covered everything in that one. Oh, the last one we do. Oh, it's changed since this morning. So we do have these quick links at the top. So we've got a quick link to J2 Launch and My Files. So that's especially useful if you're in things like J2 Code and you just want a quick back to your My Files or back to J2 Launch. Then we've also got this quick link here that takes you to the latest resources. So intermittently we will showcase seasonal activities. So for example, that was Christmas activities this morning. They've clearly changed it. And that's our default one, is latest resources. So soon there will be Valentine's resources, there'll be Shrove Tuesday or Pancake Day resources, there'll be Easter resources, there'll be International Women's Day resources, e-Safety Week resources. So those all pop up and will be available for you to use. So they're really useful for, letting you know that these have been updated, okay, and that they are ready to use, and just give you a bit of inspiration for what you can use. Okay. Oh, let me save that. There we go. Right, teachers area. I think this is very important to point out. I'll try and keep it short. So the teachers area is here. This is fairly new. We only introduced this in June time, but this is a one-stop shop for all things help and support should you need it. Okay. Let me just open the chat, make sure I can see everything. Yeah. So we've got what's on that is our training and our live lessons. So these start up on Thursday. Every Thursday morning we deliver these. So if you are brand new or you don't know what our live lessons are, they are increasingly popular. We have on average between 60 and 70 classes each week attending. And I will teach your class for you. So these are all the ones that we've got this term. So we've got our first one on Thursday is animating a snow globe, which I'll give you a sneak peek about. We're also doing weather watch, handy, data and graphing. We're doing plotting data. So there's a very heavy data, coding and animation focus as chosen by our teachers in our teachers Facebook group. But we're also doing teacher training sessions as well. Okay, so these are designed specifically for teachers. We have designed them around the desirable features. So you'll notice they are very desirable features featured. So for example, we're doing digital storytelling for our storyteller earlier. So we're doing all three of those. We're doing the publishing, the presenting and the film and animation. The live lessons are brilliant for upskilling at the same time. So you watch me teach, and then the idea is that you then teach the children yourself using the same kind of tool or format. Okay, all of those are recorded and available in our YouTube channel. So you can find our YouTube channel link there. We've got all of our live lesson recordings. So even if 9:30 on a Thursday morning doesn't suit you, you can access the recordings, and all of our webinars are here as well. Okay, so you can access those. This is our help desk. So you can write in here. So for example, you might want to know more about Animate. you can type animate, and that is going to bring up various articles and videos. You can click on that, and it's fairly step by step with images and big circles and big arrows, hopefully to help you be able to figure out how to use certain tools. Okay, so that is there for you. And there's also, you can book a 15-minute video call with me if you really want to meet up. But these have proven really popular, especially for schools that maybe want to take the tool suite a little bit further forward. So maybe, you know, if you're thinking about using the parent portal, book a video call. If you're thinking about how can we use J2 Journal in my particular school, book a video call. They're very informal. You can ask us any questions. Okay. So all of that support is there for you, ready to go. And that is why we designed that. Okay, so let's have a little look, shall we, at My Files and Staff and Pupil Files. Okay, so the My Files is now the single place to access files in Just2easy. So it used to be that there was a separate Pupil Files tile on your Launchpad. So that has now been removed. The reason being, you can access Pupil Files through the My Files. So you always could do anyway, but we just streamlined it so there was less going on the Launchpad. So the My Files now gives you access to your own files in your My Files, and also the Pupil Files in the separate Pupil Files tile, which has been removed. So everything you can do with your own file, you can do with a Pupils file. You can drag and drop files from other sources into My Files. You can copy, organize, and share work easily, and you can use QR codes to quickly access or share pupil work. So we're going to have a look at all of that now. So as I said earlier, your My Files is that first tile as we sort of look at our Launchpad. So we're going to open that up, and hopefully you've got some work saved in there. Don't worry too much if you haven't. Just have a look at mine. But you'll see here all my work is stored in reverse chronological order. So I can see my most recent pieces of work that I've made today, and I can scroll back and I can look at all those different pieces of work that I've got. Now, as usual in a storage center, I've got the ability to be able to search. I can filter according to file type. So just to highlight some of these, because I think they need to be renamed, but they haven't been yet. So J2E, those are J2 create files. JIT, that's exactly what it says on the tin. J2 Spotlight, we don't offer that tool anymore, so I'm not sure why that's there. J2 Vote, and then you've got pictures, sounds, and video, code. Store, now this is probably the one that isn't overly obvious. That would include your Word, so any Google documents, any Microsoft documents, or any PDFs. So your Word, your PowerPoint, your Excel, your sheets, I think that's it. I can't remember what the Google versions are. I use them, but I can't remember. So all those will come under Store, Data, Whiteboard, and Blast. Okay. Now we can filter for things. Now I might want to look for winter, for example. Now that is going to search for not only the name of that particular document, but also it will search inside the file itself. So this is really useful for pupils who maybe, or staff, who maybe have called it something, can't remember what the file name is, but they know that it's about winter. So it could be, I don't know, that we've done this Ben Nevis, okay, but we were writing winter on the mountain tops. Okay, so it's quite clever how it looks through things. Okay, so there's that. Then we've also got the option to change our view, so we can change it to a list view or a tile view. And then you've got your add folder and your recycle bin as per usual. Okay, pupil files are down here, or pupils files. So when you click on that, you should have all your classes. Now, they'll more than likely be green classes because the vast majority of you are from C2K. These will already be pre-populated by C2K. So you don't need to worry about that. So you should be able to find your class. Now, if you click on your class and all your pupils, you haven't got all your pupils, or you've got extra pupils, or you have to make any changes through C2K, so their support desk first. And then those changes will synchronize with us within 48 hours. Okay, so any data that's wrong, you need to go to C2K first, or your managed service provider. So that goes for Hub, that goes for LGFL, all of our managed services. And we can see here, this is my class 1, and I can see all my pupils. So these numbers on the sort of corners, that shows me how many pieces of work those children have got. So we can look at Harry here. This is all of Harry's work. Okay, and he's done some great work. Now, if I go back a level, now you might be thinking, well, to go into 30 children's classes, that can be a little bit laborious, and it is. So what we can do is we can go up here where it says list files. If we tick that, that's actually going to show me all of my pupils' content, not just that one particular child. There we go. So we can see here that Lottie's done some work this morning. Mark, they've all done some sound bites. And then they've also done some photographs. They've taken some photos. More photos. Lottie's done some emotion matching. Lottie and Bobby have recorded that. So it gives me a really nice overview of what's going on in my class without having to go into each child's file individually. So that is the list files tick box. That's very useful. You can, in fact, you don't have to go into a class. You can list that files from the top view. So for the whole school. So this can be useful if you're a computing lead. Maybe you want to keep an eye on what's going on in which class. It's going to give you a very clear view of which classes are using it and which classes are not. So I can see here that class 1, Northern Ireland. I don't know why we've got a class called Northern Ireland. I think that's Mary's class. But class 1 are definitely the ones that are using it the most. P1's there as well. And there we go. Okay. So that is your list files tick box. Very useful. Now, the last thing I'm going to show you, I need to make sure that I'm ticking it all off my list. No, there's 2 more things that I need to show you. So the one thing I need to show you is how we can offer feedback to our students. So I can see Lottie here. I can look in her work. So this is something that she's been doing from the library. So this was a library template, and she's only added a few words there. So she's just completed the sentence. So it's okay, but it's not great. She needs to keep going. Okay. Now we can offer feedback to Lottie, and to do that we can hover over this piece of work, and we can click on this speech bubble here. So this is a learning conversation. Okay, so I can say to Lottie, great start. Can you do X, Y, Z? Okay, and I can hit enter. Now Lottie's going to get a notification of that. She's going to be able to read that, and she can then implement those changes. I've also got the option to record audio instead. So if I hit this little microphone down here, I did that a bit quickly, this little microphone, I can hit record, and again, I can give those instructions. That's not what I wanted to do. There we go. Now that's interesting. That is broken. Let's try it here. Lottie, can you have a read of your work, and can you add another few sentences? I want you to use the words freezing, chilly, and iceberg. And there we go. So that is going to attach. That was, I will let the development team know that shouldn't do that. It's because it was over this button here. Anyway, so that is going to upload that soundbite into the learning conversation. So if I go to Lottie's account, if I just refresh her page, okay, Lottie will end up with, she'll have a little notification on her My Files. Okay, she'll also get a notification in her notification center. So a new message, nope, that's not right. So she'll get a little notification on her My Files. There we go. So there's a number 2 in red. So that shows us she's got a learning conversation that she needs to look at. She can listen to that. Can she do that? So what she can do, she can look at that feedback. She can open up that file. There we are. She literally put the least effort in required. But that change will then show in the pupil files. Okay, so she can go back and she can say, I've done that. Okay, and if I just refresh that page, go back to Pupil Files, go back to Class 1, go back to Lottie, there's a little notification, but I can see that that's made that live change. So she's changed it and I can see that. Okay, and I've got that little notification that she has messaged back. So it's a really nice two-way conversation between you and that pupil. Then lastly, for Pupil Files, we can generate QR codes to specific pieces of work. So this is really useful if you've got maybe a piece of work that can't be printed, or if you want to make your something more interactive in your classroom. So for example, I had a nice digital display board where the children could grab the class iPad, they could hold it up and they could listen to a story that they wanted to listen to because they knew how to scan QR codes. There's one school, and I don't know if they're on the call, but it's a fantastic idea and I thought it was really good for Key Stage 2. So they got their Key Stage 2 children to read the books in the library and then to create a recorded book review of that book. They QR coded to that soundbite and put it on library books. And then the younger children could borrow the library iPad to scan the QR code to listen to the book review, to listen if they wanted to read the book. I thought it was amazing. I was so gutted I hadn't come up with the idea myself. But I just thought that was such a fantastic use of digital skills for a specific purpose, not just to do it to tick it, but to do it to make it very useful for somebody else. Okay, so that's just an idea. There you go, run with it. So to do that, you would record with your microphone. You'd record that book review, for example. So let's imagine this is a book review. We can go to this little green eye and we go to the QR code button. So green eye, QR code. Now for that to work, you have to tick this publish book button, okay? Otherwise it won't work. Ticking that publish button removes the requirement to have to, when you scan that, it would ask you to sign in with Just2easy, and we don't really want that. So now I can scan that and I can listen to that book review. So that you would tick the publish button and then you can print that. So that is the print button. So that doesn't have to be a book review. That could be a self-reflection. That could be, I don't know, a peer-to-peer reflection. It could be a data analysis. There's lots of things. It could be storytelling, whatever it is. So there you go. So those QR codes are really, really useful. Okay. As I've said, if you've got any questions, if I've gone too fast, or if you want to know a bit more about something, just drop it in the comments, in the chat. Okay. So hopefully that's given you a few ideas for ways to use this. But that is your My Files for your own content and Pupil Files for accessing pupils' content. Right, JIT. JIT is technically a Key Stage 1 tool, but there are definitely elements of it that are, or Key Stage 1 tool, there are definitely elements that are Key Stage 2. So it's a set of simple visual tools originally for Key Stage 1, useful in Key Stage 2 for creativity, skills building or intervention. So it helps pupils to create digital work in literacy, numeracy and topic work. So the tools I would specifically use for Key Stage 2 include JIT Paint. Now I know that there are more complex drawing tools out there, certainly, but JIT Paint can actually be used quite neatly for digital drawing, and it's exportable for use in other tools. So I'm going to give you an example of the water cycle. So we'll show you that, and I'll show you a couple of other examples that have been created using JIT Paint, just to sort of stimulate your thought process. And what's nice is we can save those and we can use them in things like JIT Mix or J2 Create. JIT Animate, which is stop frame animation. So that is a fantastic tool. It was probably one of my favourite tools to teach with because it's so cross-curricular. So again, teaching things like the water cycle. If they're able to animate the water cycle, they know the water cycle pretty well. Okay. Or just creating a story, or the Titanic sinking, or explorers, whatever it is that you've got as your topic. JIT Mix, which is combining JIT content to create digital ebooks. So we will have a look at that. And JIT Branch, so sorting and classifying data using branching database. So those really are your 4 that you would use with your Key Stage 2 pupils. And why it works with Key Stage 2 is because it's easy for your less confident users or learners, but it's also supportive for those more forward thinking as well. It builds confidence before progressing to more complex Just2easy tools, supports creativity, sequencing and logical thinking, and it links nicely to the ICT desirable features and wider UK curricula. So let's have a quick look, shall we? So JIT is here. Now JIT always opens up into JIT Write, and it really is quite a nice digital literacy tool in itself. So each tool in JIT has a very similar interface. They just have different coloured pages and tabs. So all of their tools are along the left-hand side, and they don't move, so they stay in the same place. And they're icon based as well, so really good for students maybe that struggle with reading, struggle with English as an additional language. I'm thinking in particular, it can just make them a little bit more independent. So you've got your new, load, save, publish to Webby, publish to journal, which we'll talk about in a second, and print, and then you undo and redo. So those are all in the same space. They're always prompted to choose a template or a background, no matter which tool they're in. So you can see here, and then the tools are within tabs. So these tabs are much like within our internet browser. So great for, you know, introducing children to working between different tabs and toggling between the 2 or 3 or 20 that I normally have. And I know you teachers, I know you're just as bad as me. I saw one teacher in the summer and I swear she must have had 60 tabs along the top. I thought, oh, that's excessive even for me. So JIT Paint, Turtle, which is your coding, Chart and Pictogram, which are your data handling. And then we've got Animate, Branch and Mix. So I'm going to show you JIT Paint just very quickly, and I'm not going to show you how to paint, but there are different templates here. What's nice about JIT Paint is you've also got the option to add in pictures. So you've got your pictures tab. So the children can Google search that might be they're looking at winter, and they can create their own photo-based winter picture, for example. They can create their own characters. They can create their own line art activities, or they can load in pictures. So if you know they've created it in maybe things like Adobe Express, Canva, they can add those in and then embellish it, or they can take photographs. So I have seen some schools that are creating either hooks for writing or like a school prospectus that the children have created themselves, so taking photos and adding text over the top. So those are all options for you. Okay, now I'm just going to show you some Key Stage 2 specific content. So this is the water cycle that we've created in JIT Paint. So this just gives you an idea of how, even though it is a fairly basic tool, you can create some really nice content. So here we go, we've got evaporation, condensation and precipitation, surface runoff, groundwater and transpiration. All of these I've used as clip arts and stamped them over the top, and just some paint. So we've got texture tools here as well as flat colours. Okay, so that is one. I'm trying to think what else. So Signs of Autumn we did, so this was quite nice. We did this as a live lesson. So the children stamped this onto the page, different characters, different textures. So these are just all clip art images stamped over the top. Okay, now to use it in a different tool, you just have to press this little button up here. This is Save as Image, and that will save into your My File. So you can use that in J2 Create, you can use it in JIT Mix, lots of different things. Okay, so there's lots of different uses for that. Right. I'm not going to show JIT Animate. I'm going to show JIT Animate, but I'm not going to show you how to use it. So again, this is the water cycle. So this is what I started creating. So evaporation, precipitation, So obviously I haven't finished that, but that just gives you an idea of what you could use it for. And again, we can click that GIF button and that will save into our My File. So we can use that in J2 Create, we can use that in JIT Mix. Okay, so that gives you an idea. So there's lots and lots. This is the one that we're going to do for our live lesson on Thursday. So we're going to draw our background and we're going to make it snow in our snow globe. So please feel free to book onto that and join us for that if you want to know how JIT Animate works a bit better. Right, let's have a look at Branch, shall we? So Branch is our branching databases. It is the only tool of its kind that we're aware of. And it allows you to sort different pieces of data quite quickly using questions. So we'll go with animals, we'll go for the fail-safe, but you can see here there's lots and lots of different clip art libraries. So, you know, there's space, there's weather, there's plants, there's mini beasts, food. You can also search for your own. So you've got the Google search, so you can search for things. So you might want to add in a dolphin, for example. There we go. So you can add in photographs. You don't have to stick to the clip art. But I am going to choose clip art. And I'm going to choose a blank background. You can choose backgrounds to go and add on to. I personally, I don't like them. I just like, for this purpose, I like a blank background. But it's up to you. If you wanted to theme it, you can. And then you choose your data. So I'm going to choose a lion. So I can click on the data. I'm going to choose an anteater. It's not an anteater, is it? It's an aardvark. I don't know. A bird, and let's go for some sort of fish. There we go, jellyfish. Okay. Now I can add lots of those. I don't just have to stick to those 4. If I've added one by mistake, I can hover over it and click on the bin, and that will remove it. So please feel free to follow along if you want to. There are 2 different modes. So in England, branching databases are taught in the end of year 3, beginning of year 4, and I suspect it's very similar in Northern Ireland. I think it's the end of P4, beginning of P5, but then very much revisited then in year 6, certainly as part of the science curriculum. You know, think about classifying animals and mammals and all sorts of things like that. So the simple mode I would use with the younger learners, introducing them to, you know, how we classify data using those sorting questions. Then when I revisited, that's when I would introduce it with the advanced. So the difference is you can add a title and a description. So that's where you would kind of build it into a wider research project. So getting the children to write down or find out factual information, to add that into the description, and then to introduce those facts into the question. So for example, if you said, I don't know, a lion can jump 4 feet, you could have, can I jump 4 feet as one of the questions, kind of thing. Okay, so that's how you'd make it just a little bit broader. So those are the differences between the two modes. I'm going to keep it in simple because it's the first Monday back and I can't go with anything further. So I'm going to go to sort, and that's going to ask me for a question. So I'm going to say, do I have a skeleton? Okay, so you're going to pull the ones that have a skeleton over here, and the ones that don't have a skeleton over here. Okay, now you can, if you pop it in the wrong area, you can recycle that. And there we go. Now we've got text-to-speech built into this.
Choose a question and divide your items into 2 groups.
And the children have also got the option, should they need to record their questions. So that can make it a little bit more interactive. So that's quite a nice activity. Maybe you want that as an extension activity. Just recording sound in a busy classroom can just sometimes be a little bit problematic. So just get those quiet spaces ready to go. And there we go. And then we click OK, and it's going to keep on going. So I'm going to say, can I fly? So I'm going to say yes, and then no to those ones. And then, do I eat ants. So no and yes. And there we go. There is our branching database. Now, as I said, I've only done it with 4 pieces of data. I think you can do it up to, I want to say 20, might even be more. But start small and then you can boost it up. So what we can do is we can click play. So we're going to have, do I have a skeleton? I'm trying to think of something that doesn't have a skeleton. Just jellyfish, really, isn't it? Octopus. An octopus doesn't have a skeleton, does it? So I'm going to say, do I have a skeleton? No. Is this answer correct? I'm going to say no. Do you want to add an item? I'm going to say yes. And that's where I can add in my octopus should I be able to find it. So we're going to Google search. I beg your pardon. There we go. Okay. Let's add Mr. Octopus in. Do I have 3 hearts? That's a bold fact to know on a Monday morning, isn't it? Do I have 3 hearts? An octopus does. So there we go. I don't know how many a jellyfish has. Should have checked that, but there we go. So we'll go with it. And you can keep going. Okay. So do I have a skeleton? And then they can save that. They can also record at the top as they can in all of the JIT tools. So that's really helpful for self-reflections, maybe thinking about what they do better next time, what they thought, what things they found difficult, that kind of, metacognition activity. So there we go. And then we can click save. They're going to get the savey circle. Got to be a more technical term for it, but that's what I call it in my live lessons. So it shows the children that something's happening. Unlike other tools where they can just click that save button 20 times and nothing looks like it's happening, but you end up with 20 saved files, and it grays out. So you end up with a ghost save button. The other thing that they can do is they can publish to journal. So we'll look at journal a bit later, but they can push that to journal. Now, because I'm logged in as a teacher, it's going to take me through the whole spiel. But if that was a child, they could push that and it would just push to journal and wait until a teacher moderates it. So that is an option. Okay, so that is JIT Branch, part of our J2 data tools, which we're going to look at database a bit later as well. And then we've got mix. So mix is slightly different to the other tools. It's a little bit difficult to explain. So JIT Mix offers you an ebook wrapper for the other tools. So you choose a page layout and then you choose the tool that you want to use on that page. So for example, maybe we're going to reflect back on our water cycle that we've been doing. Okay, so I'm going to have a paint page and a title. So I want this to be the front page of my book. So I'm going to stay on this one and I'm going to hit tick. Okay. So I can paint on this page if I wanted to. So if I wanted to paint the water cycle, I could. I'm going to add there we go. So I've got my text box here. I can use my fonts, my different font sizes, my different font colors. I've also got my word lists. So this is very similar to JIT Write. Okay, so I can listen to any of these words. And I've got my different word lists here. Okay, there we go. Then if I click in this box, because I chose this to be a paint box, I can paint onto it if I want to. But I've already created that water cycle in JIT Paint. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go up here, this little button here. So this is our load button. So that will allow you to load any content that you've made in the JIT Paint tool. So there we go. There is my water cycle. So I can add that. onto my JIT Mix file. So it offers me an opportunity to add a picture and then some explanation underneath or a title underneath. So this is great for things like topic books, for general workbooks, for digital ICT skills books, whatever it is that you want to create. And I can then create a new page. So I'm going to add another page. Now we also did an animation on our water cycle. So I can choose this one, but this is a paint page because it's blue. Okay, so I use these arrows. I'm going to click until I get to pink because that is an animate page. So when I've found my animate page, I'm going to hit tick. And I'm going to do the same. I'm going to use that little load button here. And I'm going to load in my water cycle. So that will play on that page. And there we go. Okay. Now I could add another page in. And this time I want a right page. So I'm going to look for this color. There we go. And I'm going to write an explanation. The water cycle. There we go. And I could change that to blue, for example. Okay. I've also got the record button. Now this, we've changed this recently in the last 6 months. It used to just be one sound recording for the entire book, which is very irritating. It's not anymore. It is now a sound recording per page, which makes perfect sense, doesn't it? So this is a fantastic tool, makes these ebooks then fully interactive. This is great for things like storytelling. It's great for, story retells. It's great for topic books, as I said earlier. So what I'll do is I'll save this. So that was my water cycle, the start of my water cycle book. But let's have a look at some of these that I've got. So I've got my Titanic. So topic book about the Titanic. So we've drawn this. We've got an animation, but also some text underneath. So that animation will show the Titanic leaving Southampton, bound for New York. I've got I've used chart to document the number of people in each class and also the crew. Okay, there we go. This chart shows the number of each class on board. Then I've also got first class survivors versus first class victims. So I've made that chart a little bit more in depth and added a lot more information here. This is a right page over the top of a photograph. Okay, so I've written my poem over the top, and then I could add, I have got a sinking Titanic animation. But so that's one idea. And this one, this is more of a class art book. So we were looking at this as a topic. So we're looking at this particular artist for our art focus that half term. And I, as a teacher, have collated all of the pieces of work that they created in JIT Paint. So this is a little bit of a flip on it, in that you create this as a teacher and it sort of creates that class book as opposed to having a book per child. So this is by Lottie, this is by Bobby, and this is by Harry. So that is another option. And I think that's most of the ones that are sort of, oh, end of year. Here we go. This was an end of year reflection memory book. So the children chose what their favourite bits of the year were, what they like to learn, and what they're looking forward to. So there's lots and lots of different uses for that. So that is JIT Mix. Okay. So we're going to look at J2 Create now. So feel free to have a go at this as we kind of go along. Okay, so J2 Create is on your Launchpad. It is a flexible all-in-one creative tool for creating multimedia projects. So just to give you, that's annoying, I was going to link that. So just to give you an idea of, I mean, my spelling today is terrible. Just to give you an idea of how these can work. So I think it's this one. Here we go. So this is made in J2 Create. So if I click edit, this is J2 Create. And I've made it so that these all link to a different page. This is a multi-page document, and each planet has some information on it. So let's have a look at Mars, for example. So we've got Mars here. Mars is the 4th planet, so I've added in all this information. I've added in an interesting fact, and also this button here will go back to that front page. So this is a really high level use of J2 Create. This is something you'd probably do in your P7 class, maybe even at the end of P7. But that just gives you an idea of how professional this can look, because we're only going to look at it at a very basic level at the moment. Okay. So let's just have a quick chat. So pupils can combine text, images, audio, video, and animation in one seamless workflow. It supports the cross-curricular learning, including literacy, topic work presentations, and storytelling. And it's designed to be child-friendly and intuitive. It reduces setup time compared to Microsoft or Google tools, encourages creativity, communication, and digital confidence. And it helps pupils to publish work directly to J2 Journal or class blogs, and making sharing and reflection easy. Allows for seamless integration of JIT created content. That is the other flip side of it, is you can add in JIT content really easily without having to export anything. So let's have a look, shall we? So J2 Create is here. Used to be called J2E5. If anybody thinks, oh, it looks like J2E5, it is. It's just a brand new name. Okay. And this is what it looks like. So we've got all of our tools along the top here. We've also got our text tools along the right. We've got our colors. We've got our shapes. And we've also got our page at the bottom. Okay, so our page options. So that's what we're going to start with. We're going to flip our page. So here, down the bottom, we've got page orientation, page color, and paper backgrounds. So if I click on that, that's going to change my page orientation to landscape. So it really depends on what kind of document you're creating. You know, if you're creating a poster, you might want to keep it in portrait. If you're creating a presentation, you might want to have it in landscape. Okay, and then we can click on this button here. So that is our page color, and we could choose a page color. So the ones in the middle are the color itself, and then the ones at the bottom are kind of the shade or the saturation. So we've got some very pastel-y shades, some very dark shades of color. Okay. Then what we can do is we can click anywhere on the page and add our text. Now that's what's nice about J2 Create. You don't have to click in a box, and if you click in a box, it doesn't throw everything off the other side. Not naming any names, so there's definitely a tool that does that. So we can click anywhere and we can add a title. So have a think about maybe topics that you're doing this term. So I'm going to do winter. Okay, and just add a title. Now at the moment, that doesn't look like much of a title. So we're going to double click on the text, and that's going to offer us the option to edit. So double click, and then you've got all your options here along the right. So we can change the font. We can change the size. We can change the color. We could highlight it, put it in a filled box if we wanted to, put it in a border, make that border rounded. You've also got the option to tick talk as you type. Now, word of warning, if you show that to 30 children, you will have 30 devices talking as they type. So maybe keep that one a secret. Or make sure that their volume is very low, or that they all have headphones. Trust me, I've done it. It's not pleasant. Okay. So that's how we can add and edit text. So you can click anywhere and write, so winter is when the planet is furthest the sun. The days are short and the nights are so long, so very, very long. So we can double click and you can change that again. You know, you can change that into different fonts. Now there are different fonts to choose from. One of the fonts here called Lexend, this was designed specifically for users with dyslexia. Something about the weighting of the words and the spacing can help support reading skills with individuals with dyslexia. Now there are variations of this. Okay, so if I click here, can you see where it says more fonts at the bottom? There's like 1900 fonts. So you can choose your own favorites. So these are the default favorites here at the top, these 10, but you can choose your own 10 favorites. So if I go to more fonts, so there you go, yeah, there's 16 fonts. So if I type in Lexend, can you see there's lots of variations? So this one here, Lexa Terra, the spacing between the letters is really wide. So that can really help if you've got pupils that really struggle with words that are moving on the page or find that they've got letters that are blurring into one another. If you use that as a font for them, that can be helpful. Or show them how to set that as their own font and they can manage that themselves. Okay, so that is an option. You just tick that box to make it save it as a favorite. So I'm going to add that into a fill box. So that's how we can add text. You can also add in pictures. So this is this wee green man, as Mary calls it. Okay, the little green man at the top. That is your kind of your pictures. So if you've got any pictures, videos, or if you've got any pre-recorded sound, those will all be in there. Okay, so if we click that, and there we go. So I have already saved some. So this is a JIT picture that I've got saved, and that is a JIT animate that I created. You can also add in sounds that you've pre-recorded using the microphone tool. Okay, and there is that little snowman that I used in. Oh no, I used that this morning, didn't I? Did I use it this morning? I don't know. All this training's blurring into one. But there's a little snowman. Okay, so you've got lots of things that you can add in. You can also Google search. So I might want to look for winter. So for some imagery, and I might want to untick that clip art and add in some actual photographs. Let's try this one instead. There we go. Now, I think if it comes up with that, it means it's not, it doesn't have copyright permissions to be shared. So you might find that. Generally, it's with the nicest images. There we go. Okay, and I can click on those and I can make them bigger. There we go. Add that on there. And then the last thing that I'm going to show you, there is much more to J2 Create, but the last thing I'm going to show you is this little multimedia tool here. If I click on that, I've got the option here to add video, sound, or embed. So if you are using embed codes, so NewsDesk have some amazing videos that have an embed code underneath them that you can grab. If you've got the embed code, you can add it in here. So just copy and paste. So you can add NewsDesk clips in. So that's a nice cross platform use of tools. YouTube also allowed you to embed. I'm trying to think who else. Schools Tube, I think. Is it Schools Tube? Vimeo, lots of those. Okay, you can take a picture directly onto the page or embed a QR code. But this is the one that we're looking for. So record sound. So if I click, I can now record sound. So we're going to add a little sound bite. This is great for children to make it a little bit more interactive. Or if you've got those children that really struggle to get their ideas down on a page, but verbally they're very, very strong, you could get them to record their presentation instead. So here we go. Winter is when the planet is furthest from the sun. The days are short and the nights are long. There we go. And I can add that soundbite there. So it just makes my presentation a little bit more interesting and less of a sort of flat, just text and pictures. Okay. I'll just wait 3 to 5 business days. It's very slow today. I think everybody is back and everybody is using Just2easy. I feel like I should play some sort of lift music whilst we're all waiting. Do, 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 do. So I'm going to cancel that because I don't want to wait for it. There we go. So that is JIT Create. I'm going to move forward because there's still a huge amount to get through. Yes, there's still a huge amount to get through. But if you have any questions about JIT Create that you want answering, pop them in the chat and I can always circle back at the end of the session. So last little thing, save button is here. And then we'll just save winter 2026. And hit save. That's going to save into my files. There we go. And then we've also got that publish to journal button. So that is in JIT. It's in JIT Create. It's also in the microphone, video and photo tool where the children can save those directly to publish those directly to journal. So that is an option there. Okay. Right. J2 Code, everybody's favourite. So J2 Code is our coding and computational thinking program or platform. So there's various programs within it. We've got JIT Turtle, we've got J2 Code Visual, got J2 Code Logo, and also Microbit. Two that we're going to look at today are Visual, which is our block-based coding for creating programs without writing text. Very much like a little orange cat that we all know and love. It's very similar. And also J2 Code Logo, which is our text-based coding, which uses turtle graphics to draw shapes and patterns. And Logo, they're both very useful in their own independent ways. Logo is very similar to Turtle in that it makes a natural skills progression. So Turtle is all around directions, programming directional language, left, right, forwards, backwards. So Logo moves very smoothly from Turtle. Visual is a little bit more of a diagonal move in that you need to build up the algorithms using those block-based blocks of code. Okay. So it supports Key Stage 2 learning by developing computational thinking, so learning how to sequence, adding in loops, problem solving, debugging, logical reasoning, thinking about how things might happen, what the outcome's going to be. Okay, so encourages logical reasoning through coding challenges, helps pupils visualize the results of their code immediately, and supports cross-curricular links. So maths is a very strong link in coding and computational thinking. So things like angles, shapes, and also art, so patterns or designs. So for this time of the year, you could use J2 Code Logo for coding a snowflake, for example. And there is a library resource on that. I think I might have that as a live lesson soon as well. I feel there's a fear in me that that is coming up soon. Might need to reflect on that. So classroom ideas, things like creating patterns and shapes using Logo commands. So there is a C2K SEER task around. I want to say writing your own name. So that's a good one for Logo. There's definitely a SEER task on bouncing letters that lends itself really well with visual, and in fact there is a live lesson on that I did last academic year, so have a look for that if that is something that's on your task list this term. You can build interactive programs with visual coding blocks or solve coding puzzles to reinforce algorithmic thinking. Okay, so let's have a little look-see, shall we? So J2 code is here. I'm just going to try and open this a bit, let some light in. There we go. Now that I'm not being blinded. So JIT Turtle is here. We're not going to look at that. It's not Key Stage 2 specific. Microbit is there. We're not going to look at that today. Now, if you don't have microbits in school, then I would use that platform to look at microbits. If you do have physical microbits, the actual microbit program is better. And we don't have the software plugin that allows the microbits, our software, to talk to the microbits. I'm sorry. We were promised at the time and it just didn't happen. But there is, you can have a look at that should you want to. But we're going to start with visual. And we've got our little penguin. So our penguin is the default sprite. So that is our little sprite. We can move him around. Okay. But he's there. At Christmas time, it is the reindeer, but generally the rest of the year, it is our little penguin is our default sprite. Okay. And we've got our blocks here. So if I use this little drop down menu here, I've got level 1, which restricts those. So that's a great starting point for, you know, you kind of P4s and probably P3, P4. And it just restricts the number of blocks there are. So the movement blocks are very restricted: looks, pen, text, control, and sounds. Level 2 moves up a little bit. So we add things like operators, lists, and something else, control. And then level 3, you add your procedures and your variables. Okay. Now I'm going to stick with level 3 at the moment. And I'm just going to get my little character to move from one side of the screen to the other. But the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to add in a background to make it look a little bit more effective. So to add, you just press this plus button up here. So I've got sprite 1 and sprite 2. So we want to change sprite 2 into a background. Now, little tip for delivery when you are teaching this, just to make your life easier and their life easier, whenever you add a sprite, rename it immediately. Immediately. And to do that, we're going to use this little drop down menu here, and we're going to go down to rename. Now, the reason I say that is because I've had many children programming a background or programming the wrong sprite because they've got sprite 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and they lose track of which sprite they are programming. And it's a little bit heartbreaking because generally it's the ones that are actually really good because they've skipped ahead and they, you know, they feel like they're doing it themselves, and actually generally they've got the coding really, they've done the coding really well, but they've done it on the wrong sprite. So they'll have like their background moving off the side. But there we go. So make sure you get them to rename. So we've got sprite 1, which we could call penguin, and then background. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the little penguin button here. So that's where we can change our sprite. So the penguin button, and then I just call it the penguin plus. Don't know, making it up as I go along. So we click the penguin plus button, and that's where we can change our sprite. So you've got things like your sprite. If you want your penguin to start blinking, you can have that as a different costume. But if I scroll down to the bottom, you've got your backgrounds. And you can choose a nice background for your penguin. So it could be, I don't know, you could be on a dance floor if you wanted to, or in a cave. You've got your iceberg, your snowy scene. I might put him in a disco. There we go. So there's my little penguin. I'm going to have him move across the stage. This is a great background for your bouncing letters if you are doing that SEA task. But there we go. Now, because I've chosen that from the background subsection, it's already ticked as background. If you're using a photograph as a background, just make sure it's ticked and it'll fill the whole screen. Okay, so that is my background, all done. So then I'm going to go back to my sprite, and this is where we can start building up our code. So we want our penguin to move. Now, how I have always taught this is I would show them a couple of we'd have a little go on a trial file, and then we'd start our proper file. And I'd do it in a range of different challenges. That's how I've always done coding and data, actually. So I would say to the children, right, I want my penguin to move across the screen. So I want him to go from here to here. Have a go. So they can pull any of these, and that is the beauty. You want to encourage them to not be scared to try things out. And what I always tell children when I'm doing coding is you will get this wrong on multiple occasions. You will get it wrong. It's part of the process. So the whole debugging process is really important. So encourage them that you can try things, but it's how we fix it is the important thing. So you are going to get it wrong. Even our developers on the team, they get things wrong. A lot. Probably much more than me, which is great. But they always fix it, and that is the important part. So I can guarantee what your children are probably going to do is going to use that move forward. Okay, so it's the adding things in, getting them to trial the algorithm, see if it works. So we can press play, and we can see he has moved, but his forwards is different to what I thought it was going to be for a start. So we need to debug that. So that is not the right code. So we're going to press stop. So that is the kind of the play, check our algorithm, and we can drag it into this box down here. So I'm going to have a little look again. So this time, I'm going to use this glide button. This is probably my favorite one. And this is how it ties in nicely to your maths curriculum. So you've got your x-axes and your y-axes there. So this is where the children can figure out. So if I hover, and this is where your iPads might be a little bit problematic. If you have got an iPad, what you'll need to do is you'll need to drag the character and see what it says on the X-Y axes when they're holding them. Okay, so I want my character to go from here, but if I've got a mouse, I can put the mouse where I want my character to end up, and I can see that is at the bottom, that is X 197, Y minus 22. So I can put that in here. So 197, Y was minus 22. And my glide is 1 second at the moment, so I can change that to 5 seconds, for example. And then I'm going to test my algorithm. So I'm going to press play. First of all, it's going in the right direction this time. Second of all, it's moving a lot slower. So you can test that. You can trial, check, change this so we could see what it looks like when it's at 10 seconds and press play. Oh, that's a bit better. And he's going to glide to that point there. Okay. So there's lots and lots of tools that you can use within this. So we've got things like speech bubbles, so we can add that in afterwards. So we could say, let's dance. I'm going to change that to 3, otherwise we're going to be waiting for ages. So if I press play, I can see what that let's dance. Okay. I could add in a pen. So if I wanted to draw a line or a path, I can set the width of that. I can set the color. I can randomize the color. I've got things like text. So I've got text boxes. So that's great for instructions. Speak. So you can have it say things in a male voice or a female voice. I mean, some of these are more Key Stage 3 that even I don't know. But they are there should you need them. Things like events, so when something happens, something else happens, so you could have that. So at the moment, it's just when I press the play button that something happens, or I could have when I press play, I then need the space bar to trigger that particular activity. So those are kind of your trigger buttons. So when the sprite is clicked, when I receive a message, when the volume changes. Control buttons, so repeats, your loops, your forever do, your breakouts, your sensing, so touching something, distance from something. You've also got things like sound, so you can have it playing notes. So that's quite nice for some of these games where you can have it, where you create your own sort of garage band activity. Okay. The last thing to point out is when we put coding here, it will follow it in a kind of linear fashion. So if I put this here and say, it will do these first and then it will do this. So if I press stop and play.
Hello.
Okay. So you can end up with everything down along the page. It doesn't really have to be sort of linked up as long as it's underneath it. Okay, and then they hit save, and that's going to save to their My Files. Now it's worth pointing out for both data, Snowy Dance, there we go. For both data and coding, there is an examples list or library. So this has various, you can see here, various examples of visual that the children or you can then deconstruct. So if I use this button, it just gives me an idea. I mean, it's very extensive. It gives you an idea of how games are created. Safe to say this was not one of the education team that created this. This is one of the developers on the team. So yes, this is well beyond me, but it does give you an idea. So when left arrow is pressed, change X by, change Y by. Okay. And I think that is intended. That's a year 5. So there you go. P6s should be able to do that. There's a few examples for you to look at. So that is J2 visual, and then we've got J2 code logo. Okay, so it does have 3 different levels. So one is very similar to turtle, so you can just make your turtle move using these directions, and there we go, easy activity. Level 2 steps that up a little bit more in that you have your script. So this is your stage with your sprite. There's too many S words in all of this. So there is your sprite or your turtle. Okay, moving around the stage. This is the script that dictates where your sprite moves to. And you can see there we've written out those commands. So forward, right, forward, right, forward, right, forward, right. So the forward, the number is the distance that it moves. For the right and left, the number is the angle that particular sprite is going to move by. Okay, so 90 degrees is a right angle, so it's going to move at a right angle. So probably one of the first challenges I would get the children to do is to start creating either a letter, their initial letter, or what looks similar to an initial letter. Can be a bit difficult with some of them, but when they've got to this stage, it's okay. Like even a Z, they can go right and then it has to turn by 100, 300, I don't know, what's it, 315 degrees, and then across and the same. So it will take them a while to figure it out, but that is an idea. Okay. Or, so there is that idea, or to create regular polygons, so things like triangles or pentagons or octagons or dodecahedrons or whatever it is that you want to create. So they can adjust these numbers here. So if we start playing with this, so 45, and if I hit play, that has taken that off on that angle there. Okay. Bear with me. There we go. And if I play it again, and I could keep going. Okay. Now, if I go to level number 3, that's where, and I'm going to clear this, and I'm going to clear this, and I'm going to clear screen. There we go. That's fine. This is where we have shorthand now. It's not written out, but it all means the same. So FD 50 is forward 50. And then we've got back 50, left 90, right 90. So those are degrees in turning. Pen down, pen up, home, which takes you back to home. Clear screen means clear everything. So clear the commands and go back home. Color, so you can set the color. So there's different colors that you can set. So that's for the pen color. Your repeat functions, which are really important, and then start with your procedures. Now, the one that I would use for kind of your P7s, maybe P6s, if they're quite strong on their maths, is you can start introducing things like arc, so the length of an arc, circus radius. You've got your clear or your hide. Clear text or hide turtle, so you can make your turtle kind of appear somewhere else. Pen width, your set X, XY, and set Y. So those are kind of some of these math skills that they can start to implement. Beyond that, it really is key stage 3 kind of level, and especially with the lists and things like that. So I wouldn't worry about maths or lists. But let's have a little look. So I'm going to go forwards, then left. So what I'm going to do is I want to create, and I want to make that a bit bigger, so we can start adjusting these sizes. So I'm going to make that 100, so forward 100. Now instead, I'm going to make that angle 60 degrees, okay? And I'm going to see what happens. So if I click plus, is sort of moved to that direction, okay? Now I can add in a repeat function. So repeats help us to make our algorithms more efficient. So if I click repeat, so at the moment it's repeat 4. So anything that I put into these brackets will repeat 4 times. So what I can do is I can cut and paste those instructions into those brackets. And now if I press play, we've got 4 sides of a hexagon. Okay. Now, a little tip for when you're teaching the children how to create a polygon. So polygon, the turtle needs to go 360 degrees. So the turtle needs to end up back where it started. So that is 360 degrees. Okay. So to help them figure this out, the repeats are equal to the number of sides of the shape that they're creating. So for example, a hexagon is 6 sides. So we make that 6. Okay. Then the left, so the amount of turns, so the angle of the turn is equal to 360 degrees divided by the number of sides will give them the angle they need. So we can see repeat 6 times because a hexagon has 6 sides. The forward length doesn't matter really. That just determines how big that shape is, big or small. And then left by 60 degrees. So if I press play, that is my hexagon. So I would kind of show them how to do a hexagon and then say, right, figure out your pentagon. So help them. So you say, how many sides? 5. So it needs 5 repeats. So what is this angle? This angle is 360 divided by 5, which is what, 75? Not quite. 70? No. 72? There we go. Got there eventually. But that process shows them that even adults make mistakes as well. Okay, so then you could say, right, I want to know a 12 is going to be what, 30. So then you might need to adjust this size. You might just say 30. So this process is debugging. Okay, making a mistake, looking at your coding to see where the mistake is and fixing it. And there we go. There is our 12-sided shape. So you could make that 11 sides or 20 sides or 3 sides. So that is a really useful activity to have up your sleeve, is creating regular polygons. Then you can start with things like spirographs. I'm showing my age now. I don't even think spirograph's a thing anymore. But you could get the children to create a regular shape like this and then program it so it shifts ever so slightly and it keeps going. So I think there is an example somewhere. Here. So there you go. So there is your spirograph example. And you could have that so that the colour changes as well. So those are just some activity ideas and examples of what to create. But as I said earlier in the session, we are doing a lot of coding and data sessions in our live lessons this term. So join me for one of those if you are feeling a bit out of your depth when it comes to coding, as we all are, I'm sure. Okay. Right. I'm well behind schedule, but we'll try and keep to timing. Database now. So database is a lovely tool. They're all lovely tools. It's a visual, easy to use database tool for collecting, organizing and analyzing information. It allows pupils to create tables, charts and graphs without complex software. You can use it for collecting data for maths, science, geography or topic work, sort and filter information to investigate patterns and relationships, and create charts or graphs to visualize your findings and support conclusions. So it helps to develop computational thinking and data literacy, encourages independent exploration, and provides a hands-on interactive way to engage with data. It's simpler and safer to use than Excel or Google Sheets for Key Stage 2 children. Did you know? It's fully integrated into the Just2easy ecosystem. We've got that published to J2 Journal or class blogs functionality, and it supports across curricular learning and easy classroom management. So let's have a look. I'm just going to close some of these down. Okay. And it is here. So these are the other tools in the JIT data tool suite. So we've got pictogram and chart, which we looked at this morning in the Key Stage 1 activities. We've got branch, which we've had a quick look at, and we've got database. So this is where you'll find database. There's also J2 Vote, which is there, but just to make you aware, because I think that's disappeared off the Launchpad, but you can still find it there. But here is database. Now, I'm trying to think which way to do this. Okay, I'm going to do a very quick creating our own database, and then we'll look at the examples, because I think those are probably more important. So let's go for a pop here. So we're going to create our own database. So it opens up into database. We've got to define our fields before we can click on anything else, okay, because nothing else is going to show until we've created our database. So just a very popular one, pupil name, okay. So we're going to add in our field name. So we're going to do one around pupil name, height, shoe size, easy peasy, okay. So pupil name, type, so these are all the different types, text, multi-line text, number, lists, list goes on, okay. And then we just click this button here to add another field name. So I'm going to have pupil height. What is going on with my spelling today? Now that is not going to be text. We're going to have that as a number. So we're going to click that, make sure the type is number. And I'm also going to set the units here at the end, the default units. I'm going to make those centimetres because I don't want them popping inches in or hands or whatever it is that they decide. So I want to stipulate those units. And then I'm going to have foot size. Again, I'm going to make that a number. And I'm going to make that UK. Because you've got EU or UK. Okay, and there we go. That's my database. So I'm going to have to click save before I do anything. So I'm going to name that. And that's when I can get the form. So that means the children can come up and we can do this together. So I could say Harry, he is, I don't know, 120 centimetres with a foot size 5. And I can hit save. I'm going to go for Lottie, who's going to be 100 centimetres with a foot foot size of 4. I'm going to go for Jaron, who is 115 and a foot size 6. And I can keep going. Okay, now I can share this with the students if I wanted to by clicking on the share button. Just have to remember which way around I have to do this. So then you can share this by clicking on this little drop down menu here, and you can share that with either with your class, with individual users, or with a class out of the list. So you've got my class is class 1, so I'm going to share with them. Now, if you want them to add into it, you do have to tick this box that says edit. Otherwise, they can't add into it. So that edit box has to be shared. And then they can access that through the shared files area. But that's how you would share a database. And then they can all enter into that. So that's another way of doing it. So now we've got a few records in there. So I can go to my table. And I can see those data records side by side. Okay, so I can use the columns to order those in height or in foot size order or in alphabetical order of names. Okay, so you can start using the columns. When the databases get bigger, we can start using this search column, which we're going to have a look at in a second. But we've also got the charts. Now this is probably not going to work in terms of height. There we go. Doesn't work very well with small bits of data. So let's have a look at an example database. So that's how you'd create your own database. The example databases are really where it's all about. So click on the examples. And there are various to choose from. Now, a few of these are heavily featured in the SIA tasks. They're also featured in the Teach Computing scheme of work, which is a UK or an England-based computing scheme that is freely available. So they're featured in both of those. Okay, now some of these are smaller databases. So you can see by the numbers how big or small these are. So we've got a pre-made example pupils database. Okay, we've also got a mini beast database. That's very small. Countries database. So some of these are really good for cross-curricular use. So for example, we could open up our countries database. And this is where you can start in the table, for example. You might want to search what are we going to search? We're going to search who has the euro as currency. So I'm going to use my key term or keyword search, which is euro. So that is going to give me 7 countries that have the euro. Okay. We've also, so that's a very simple keyword search. If I use this magnifying glass here, that's where I can start to become more specific. So this is the advanced search. So I might want to know which are the biggest areas. So I want to know which ones are more than or equal to, and I'm going to have 1 million kilometers squared. 100,000. I don't know why that hasn't. Put the wrong one, didn't I? There we go. So those are going to give my biggest countries. So those are the ones that are over 100. My contacts aren't working. Over 1 million kilometers squared. No. Over 100,000 kilometers squared. Excuse me. I need my contact prescription updated, clearly. So that's going to give me my biggest countries. Okay. And of course, I could do that less than. So I'm going to do less than or equals to, and I might want 10,000. Let's see which countries are the tiniest. So it's Hong Kong. Okay. So that's one way of using it. We do also have the Titanic passenger list. I know somebody mentioned about Titanic topic, very popular topic over there. And I love teaching with this. I think it's great. So generally, what I would do to teach this, I'm conscious of time, so I'm going to go through this very quickly. I would teach this with, again, a number of challenges like we did with the coding. So I would say to the children, right, children, I want to know how many Harrys were on board. And I wouldn't show them anything. I'd just show them where to find the database. And I can guarantee I'd put money on it that the children would use this little arrow here to click through all 1,300 records to find the name Harry. Now, depending on how mean you are and how much time you want to buy yourself, you get on with some jobs and just leave them to it. You could then show them, right, well, we can keyword search for the word Harry, and that's going to show me there's 7 records. And actually, instead of clicking through the records, I can look at it in a table. And that's going to show me that actually this one isn't Harry, this is Reginald Harry, so that doesn't count. So it's actually 6. 6 people on board were called Harry. And then you could do things like, well, I want to know how many boys were on board. So we could have how many male. Okay. And then we can start to say, right, I want to know how many, like, not males, I want to know how many boys were on board, how many under 18 males were on board. So that's when we can start to use our our advanced search again. So this little button here, we could have gender, and we want it to be equals to or less than. I'm going to have 18. Nope. Age. There we go. And we're going to have and gender equals male. There we go. So we've got multiple filters on there. So that's given us 125. Okay. So we're going to go to the chart, and I'm actually going to clear these views so it doesn't go into my chart. Here we go. There we go. And this is where I can start to add things like class. So that's going to be a nice visual representation of that. And I might group it according to whether they survived or didn't. So that's going to give me an idea of what numbers there were and whether they survived or not. I can make those 3D. I can stack them if I wanted to. Legend. So that's going to give me a sort of a scale, not a scale. Brain fog. You know what I mean? It tallies up. It shows me which section is which. It's been a long day. And I can change things like the color. Okay. I can change the chart type. And I'm going to sit with a pie chart, I think. And there we go. No, I'm going to start with a block chart, I think, because it gives the numbers. And I can save that as a photo. So that is then going to save, I can then use that in things like J2 Create. So I could have that chart in a Titanic presentation. I could add in some sound, for example. I could create different types of charts, maybe where each class boarded, for example, and save those and add those into different things. Okay, so that is database in a nutshell. Okay, now I am running out of time. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to show you a journal and highly encourage you to book an appointment with me should this be of interest and should you want to know a little bit more information. I am going to run a webinar solely devoted to journal soon. Because it is a very popular tool. It's very similar to a tool that schools pay for that is named after a piece of playground equipment that is becoming increasingly expensive and actually isn't GDPR compliant. I'm not sure I should say that on a recorded webinar. So yes, so we are a direct competitor to that. It is a digital journal for capturing, organising and sharing evidence of learning. Ideal for Key Stage 2, where pupils can reflect on more structured work and cross-curricular projects. And the cross-curricular content can be easily evidenced and organised using the folder structure. So you can create your own folder structure. Many of our tools include a Publish to Journal button, which allows pupils to self-select work that they are particularly proud of. That Publish to Journal button is available in JIT, J2 Create, Camera, audio recordings, the microphone, and the video tool. It encourages pupil voice and ownership of learning, supports reflection and self-assessment, reduces reliance on printed or written evidence, and captures learning in a variety of different digital formats. The children can also, or you as a practitioner, can also take photographs of written work. So it is a great way of creating a digital copy of written evidence. And the reason you might do that is because it is then available to view via the parent portal. So it gives parents or families and keeps them informed and engaged. It supports moderation and progression tracking across curriculum, and teachers can review, comment, and provide feedback on entries. So let's have a quick little look for those of you that haven't seen J2 Journal before. So here are my journals. You'll see just your journals. If you are using it as a school, you'll also be able to access all the journals. So those are journals that other teachers have set up. But let's have a look at my class. So here is my class. I can see this is a nice little piece of work that Lottie has created. Okay, so you end up with a nice feed of pieces of work. So Lottie plus one more. Most of them are Lottie because she is my demo pupil. But here we go. So here's Bobby and one more. And they created JIT ebooks in JIT Mix today. So these are their JIT Mix books. And that is my journal. So you'll notice I have folder structures, so I can then use those folder structures. So maybe I'm a computing or an ICT lead, for example, and I just want to see computing, so I can have a look. If I was a literacy lead, I can filter according to literacy, and that's going to give me an idea of the literacy content. Okay, I'm going to show you that on a bigger. Here we go. So I might want to know, I'm going to look at Rosie. So that's going to show me all of Rosie's. I might want to just see Rosie's work in phonics, for example. And that is going to show me, clearly not very many phonics pieces of work, Rosie's phonics work. Okay, now if you do have parents set up, you'll be able to see which parents have seen it. The child, the teacher, and any associated parents will be able to comment on that piece of work as well. If you want them to, you can switch all that functionality off if you want to. Okay. Any pieces of work that a pupil pushes will stay in the moderate area. So there aren't going to be any pieces of work on that journal without a teacher looking at that piece of work and approving it. So there'll be no nasty surprises. So pupils can't create content and then just push it straight to a public forum. And also just to add that, for example, let's go back to my journal. For example, this entry here is created by Lottie. Well, it's created by me, but Lottie was the tagged pupil. Only Lottie, teachers, and Lottie's associated parents, if there are any, will be able to see that piece of work. Be able to see and comment on that piece of work. This piece of work is Lottie plus David. Only those two children and those two associated parents will be able to comment on that piece of work or see that piece of work. If it was tagged with everyone, then obviously everyone can see it. Okay, so that is our J2 journal. So it is a very useful tool. If you want to know any more information, just book a call with me. I have lots of availability in the next few weeks so that we can just chat and have a bit more conversation, and I can help support you to set it up. Right, we're going to finish off with the library. So you may or may not be aware of the library. It is a shared resource library with ready-made, teacher-made activities across all aspects of the curriculum. So I've just highlighted some nice ones that I thought were particularly useful for you guys as Key Stage 2 teachers. We do support planning, teaching and differentiation. Teachers, you can create and share your own resources with colleagues or with the wider community, and hopefully it helps to reduce some of your workload. Okay, so here are some of the activities I thought were really good. So there's some e-safety templates. There's a Titanic database worksheet. So that will fit really nicely with your Titanic topic. This one, I spent days creating this particular resource. This is an interactive Morse code creating activity. So they drag the Morse code and then they click on it and it plays Morse code. Honestly, that was a labour of love, that one. And then internet safety rules. Yeah. So the library is here. It used to be up the top. It does show in like order, which is great, but it gets a bit samey. So if you want to see some of the newest resources, if you click the sort button over here and go to updated, that's going to give you the latest resources that we've been working on. So Charlie's been working on opinions at the moment and developing sort of arguments for and arguments against. Do you prefer this or that? So those are there. We've also got things like feelings board, emotions board, and you can scroll through. You can also filter according to age. So if you want just your P7s, you can filter your age range, and you can also filter according to subject. Okay. Now, when you find something that you like, so for example, let's go for the power of try again. Okay, if you find that you like it, you think, I'm not doing that till week 7, you can click that star button and that's going to save into your liked resources, she says. There we go. Okay, so you can share that later. Let's find that again. If you do want to share it with your pupils, you do need to click share. And then you can either share with an individual child or person, like that. You find the class that they're in and then share with the individual, or to share with the whole class, you click on the classes tab and share with that whole class or classes and click OK. Now, pupils will only have access to content that has been specifically chosen for them. So this is Lottie. So she would access any of those activities through clicking on the library. And there is that activity that I've just set for her. So it says read or listen to the story. You can use paint tools to colour in the illustration. So I'm going to click on this. I'm just going to use these fill tools. There we go. And then Lottie can save that, and that's going to save into her My Files. So she's had a go at that particular activity. So that's how we can set and share a resource. Okay. So we've got 5 minutes left. Teams has just reminded me. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to slowly wrap up. Please feel free to have a look at the library, have a look through the resources. If you've got any questions, add them into the chat function. I'm more than happy to answer anything or any question, well, Just2easy related, but any question you might have. So just drop them in the chat if you do have any questions, okay? In the meantime, it is really helpful to provide feedback for me, for my delivery. I have had some from this morning, and I've already adapted some of my delivery from this morning from some of the feedback. So it is really, really helpful for me to know in terms of, pacing activities, which activities you found the most useful, which tools maybe you want a bit more support with. So if you want any more support, just drop it in the comments and I will be able to email you and get in touch. So if you could scan this, I will be sending out a link in a follow-up email as well to all of the registered emails who registered for the training. So don't worry, if you haven't got anything that you can scan this with now, then don't worry too much. But if you have got your phone to hand, just grab it, scan it. It's only a little Google Forms. Okay, and it just helps me with my delivery. And despite what my name says, my name is Nikki Kimball. I just borrow Mary's login, which I shouldn't really. So thank you ever so much for joining us. and I do really appreciate you taking 2 hours out of your busy schedule to join this session. I know that you are all time poor, especially this time of year when you're sort of getting back into school. And I hope that the insights from today are practical for use in your classroom. Just to highlight, if you are sharing any feedback, so if you choose to share any thoughts or highlights either from today or any future Just2easy use in class, whether that is training, whether that's activities you're doing with the children, library resources, or live lessons that you're joining us for, please be sure to tag us, otherwise we don't get to see them. And I certainly personally get a real thrill out of seeing the children and how much they're enjoying using the tools. So these are all of our handles, all of our tags. So we're on Facebook, Instagram, and we're also on X, which I keep forgetting to put on the sheet. So you can search for us Just2easy or Just2easy_com, and that is our YouTube channel. So this session is being recorded. I will make sure that it's uploaded later tonight. But thank you ever so much for giving up your precious time. So I am going to hang around for a little bit. I'll hang around for the next 2 or 3 minutes just to check if there's any questions. No question is silly. If you want to add that into the chat, I will answer it. But I'm going to end the recording now. And if anybody